I'm Tony, he's Mike, and the hype train stops here. We are here to talk to you about the freshly Hulu released film Prey.
I don't think there's ever a hype train to start with this stupid thing. I think this thing got mixed reviews right off the bat, but go ahead.
I was gonna say everything that I'm seeing about it is like, oh, it's the second best Predator movie, might even be the first. Yeah, no. It's not even the fourth. So, and this is, look, I'm not one of those get woke, go broke people. I have an appreciation for bad movies. I have an appreciation for a wide range of cinema. The fact of the matter is that this movie just isn't very good.
Correct.
It's boring. It is like watching. I mean, like literally, the biggest problem with this movie is they are following the beats of the original film. Everything after the shooting up the gorilla base in the original '87 John McTiernan film, and after that, like that's where this movie. So they're taking an hour of content and trying to stretch it out to 2, and then to top it all off. The performances aren't great in this. There's only one character that actually really acted well, and that's the main character's brother. He was actually the best actor in the group.
And the dog.
Yeah.
And the dog.
I'm not going to go that far.
I am. The dog was awesome. Where the dog actually emotes emotion, which is something our lead character doesn't do very well. Like when she's in the pit, like drowning, there's no fear on her face.
No.
Like when she's confronting the predator, there's no fear on her face. She's just there. It's just another day in the office, killing predators and shit like that.
I'm not gonna fault the actress on this one. This lays squarely at the feet of the director.
True. Which is a funny thing. So the director in this one was Dan Trachtenberg, who did 10 Cloverfield Lane, which to me is a great movie up until the last 5-10 minutes where
they decided to tack in that it's in the Cloverfield universe.
So I mean, he can be a competent director. So I'm saying there's some outside influence on this. So
I'm not even going to go that far. I'm going to tell you that it is the director's fault because he's the one that said, yeah, that's the take. Or he's the one that says, okay, show me fear, show me this, show me that. If he's not an actor's director, I mean, because 10 Cloverfield Lane had names.
It had John Goodman, who's outstanding, and it also had Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's a fine actress. I forgot who the other guy is, but he did really good too.
Yeah, well, the thing about this one, sincerely, is that, okay, so you had a bunch of actresses and actors that had never really done anything prior to this, at least nothing of this caliber before. It is your job as a director to get them there, and it is your job as a director to get the emotions shown, not told. And that's where this movie sincerely fails, number one. Number two, there's a lot of bad CGI in this film.
There is.
The predator effects, the fade in, fade out, they look wonky and weird. The grizzly bear looks really fake.
It's really bad. The lion is really bad.
And that's the other thing. This is taking place in the Americas. We don't have lions here. We have mountain lions. And that does not sound like a mountain lion. That sounds like a tiger or a big cat. It is most definitely the wrong
lion
audio.
is still a big cat.
Well, actually,
it's not 500-600 pounds a big cat, but it's still probably 200 pounds a big cat.
The other thing is that it's unforgivably predictable.
Yeah.
You literally know the story. Like, after the first scene, you know exactly how this shit is going to play out. You know every beat of it.
But that's kind of the problem when doing a sequel. Or of any kind, whether it's a prequel or sequel or whatever it is, because you've seen so many Predator movies, you know how a lot of the stuff is going to play out. Or at least you can guess how it's going to play out.
Pretty much.
So my problem is this, is that the character is not, the main character is not very likable. She comes off like the bratty little sister.
Yeah.
Which isn't very good. And then they focus most of the story on her as opposed to focusing it like on the group as a whole.
Yeah.
Here you have an outside force. This should be a tribal issue, not just some tribal ritual that that this girl has to overcome
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's part of their tribal thing and just happens to be the predator in this particular case.
Here's something else that bothers me about this. You brought this up.
Okay.
They do a big focus on the fact that this is a Native American cast and these are Native American actors, and that they are accurately attempting to portray their lifestyle on film. That's great. But if you're going to do a film that has a Cherokee soundtrack, maybe you should dub it into English as opposed to doing it in English and dubbing it into Cherokee. Because we tried to watch this and using the Cherokee, and it looked like a bad kung fu film.
Oh, it was so bad. It was worse. It was actually worse.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
they didn't even bother to try to match anything with anything. Like, the lips did not sync or jive at all. It was awful.
And
like, we turned off, like, after, like, what, maybe just a handful
We
of
gave it
minutes.
about 10 minutes, and
If
it was
that.
so distracting. It was like, I can't watch this. The other problem is that if you're going to do subtitles, if you have a bunch of characters speaking French, it might help your audience to know what it is that they're saying if they're not native French speakers. That's number two.
Instead of putting the French dialogue up, like, I don't know what the that is.
Yeah,
Like, what's supposed to do with this? Go yourself, Bill.
So-
and then the other thing is, like, so we got these French trappers and stuff. They may as well not even been there. I mean, they really weren't much of a factor, really, in the course of the film. I mean, sure, they catch the main character, but you don't see these guys till the last
2/3 of the film in. Yeah, cannon fodder. That's all they were there for, was to amp up the body count. So that's point number 4, 5, 7, whatever we're on right now. The other thing is, if you're going to make a rated R film, why do the effects for all of the kills look so cheap? And I don't mean like, we did a review on The Wretched, which purportedly was a $60,000 budget, and the effects on that were practical, and they looked amazing. This looks exactly like you would expect a CG blood fest to look like. It literally looks like they got a stock blood bank library with blood splatters and blood this and blood that, and just tacked it right in. And that's another one of those things that I was saying, that it really does look cheap. It
looks very low budget.
There's no forgiving that one. The third thing, speaking of historical accuracy, the French, who are portrayed as villains to the Native Americans in this film, historically, that's completely wrong. As a matter of fact, the French allied themselves with so many native tribes that the English had to fight what we call the French Indian Wars in the middle of the 17th century. So I'm sorry, but they're not going to go out and capture some young girl and throw her in a cage and harass her dog. As a matter of fact, a lot of the French who were part of the Americas, or in the Americas at this point, they had taken on Indian wives. They encouraged them to keep their own culture. They tried to not contaminate it. They treated them as actual nation states. Which is something the English did not do. It's a weird film that would have taken like one Wikipedia search for them to fix the problem with that one.
Well, at least one of the problems. There's so many, and the story really for me is the biggest one. Is not taking time to write a decent story and to kind of go back to the original and take some more elements and cues from the original and integrate it. So would it be a retread then? Sure. But at the same time, it would have been a better story, and I'll get into that in just a second.
Why do you want to hunt?
Because you all think that I can't. I saw a sign in the sky. I'm ready.
Who knows how to hunt?
I know how to survive.
It watches like a first draft. It really does. I mean, and again, because it's so predictable, because it is so, I don't know, it's unimaginative is the only word that I can really think of. It's like literally, if a bunch of dudes got together and were hammering shots and said, hey, well, what if we set the Predator back? Like, remember that gun that Danny Glover got at the end of the second Predator movie? Well, what if we did that, but instead of, the English or the French, how about they did it with Indians? That's
and let's get to some like the really dumb stuff about this, like, because this is like the dumbest predator ever. So like, when does a predator step into a bear trap in the middle of the open field? It just steps right into it. It's like, no, the Predator's not going to step into it. And the very first Predator, he avoids hidden traps all over the place.
And the ones that were made out of wood. The only one he didn't avoid was the net. But he immediately escaped from the net by blowing the net to pieces and leaves flying everywhere on that one.
So there's that. And then the Predator conveniently forgets the fact that at the end, hey, I don't have my helmet. I probably shouldn't shoot these weapons because where my helmet is pointed at is where they're going to land. So he should know right off the bat, if I shoot my weapons, it's not going to hit the target, let alone that the helmet is pointed at me being the Predator, and then I'm just going to kill myself like a moron. And then you got the gun at the end, which makes zero sense. So the gun in Predator 2 is given to Danny Glover by a Predator.
Yeah. Well, it does make sense. And here's the only explanation that works.
No, it doesn't.
A group of predators came to Earth and wiped out her entire fucking tribe and took the gun.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
That's the only way it works.
So there, you had to make a contrivance and a retcon. Yeah, a retcon. F you, film. You know, if you want the real story of how the Predator got the stupid pistol, check out 1996 Dark Horse comic special, A Decade of Dark Horse. In there is Predator 1718, and it shows the story of how the Predator got the pistol from Captain Raphael Andolini. It's a much more satisfying story than what you get here. So here's my thoughts on the story. So instead of focusing on just one person, make it about the tribe. And then, you know, have like a hunting party, right? And that hunting party disappears, all right?
Yeah.
So they need somebody to help track down in this party and see what's going on. So they grab, you know, what's her name? Naru?
Naru,
Whatever.
I think. I don't know.
Our lead character, all right? And she, you know, is probably, you know, a little more reluctant than to join this thing. You know, she's not aware of nothing like that. She's a tracker. She knows how to track, but, you know, she's probably not that great of a warrior. So reluctantly either struggle along to the stuff. And just like in the first one, people start getting picked off one by one, where it's nothing left but like her brother, and her dog, and then she has to, like, you know, rise to the occasion and help defeat the Predator at the end.
I was going to say, like literally taking that to the next logical thing. And again, they had stuck to the historical accuracy of the French and their attitudes towards Native Americans. It would have worked out even better if, like, her whole team gets picked off, and like her and her brother are the only two left, and they run into the French, and the French help them instead of this bullshit of tying them to a pole in the middle of a field to use her as bait to bring the Predator in. Because the Predator's already proven that if you're completely unarmed, he's not going to attack you. They want to flip-flop the rules around. Here's the thing. This comes off, it watches like a bad Friday the 13th sequel in that it's only about the kill counts, and none of the kills are terribly creative.
No, at all.
Story-wise, rather than her being like the gung-ho, I've got to prove myself, I want to be a hunter, I want to prove that I can hunt the thing that hunts you, rather than that, having her be the reluctant hero would have done more service to the character. I think I agree with you completely on that. I didn't hate the film, I just don't care about the film. It's literally, I will rewatch Predator, I will rewatch Predator 2, I will rewatch Robert Rodriguez's really underappreciated Predators. I will not rewatch this one.
No.
I will not rewatch the fourth, fifth, whatever Predator film it was.
The one with Shane Black wrote and directed. That was terrible.
Yeah, I won't rewatch Alien versus Predator. Those are all hot.
Those are awful.
Garbage. But I mean, honestly, this it doesn't work for me. And this is strictly from a film critique point of view. I don't give a shit about its politics or its message or its what characters or what gender or whatever. I really just was bored. I was like, at the end when the credits roll, I shouldn't be relieved. And that's how I felt. I was literally just bored stupid because it was so predictable. Okay, let's talk real. Predator needs to die as a franchise.
Yes, it does. Please,
Alien
for God's
needs
sake.
to die as a franchise.
Yes, Ridley Scott, stop making them.
Terminator needs to die as a franchise.
Yes.
It's done. It's over. You're not doing anything to it. You're not doing anything interesting or original. The last decent Terminator film was Terminator 3, and that's because it actually had the balls to start the war. But then you all decided that you needed to retcon that 50 different ways to Sunday, and now there's this big multiverse, infinite time loop, stupid shit, and it's done. Let it go. People, quit going to see this. You know it's going to be a shit fest. They keep making them because they're like, oh, it made money. They don't care if it's good or bad. All they care about is that you drop the money for the ticket.
In Hollywood, remember, kids, it's not important if it's of high quality, only if it makes money.
It is definitely, I realize studios are trying to segue because they know that the theater is dying. They know that streaming services are
The
the
theater
future.
isn't dying. There's good movies. You just got to put out good f***ing content. Spider-Man made over $1 billion. Top Gun, which has no right to make over $1 billion, but is f***ing doing it anyway. All right, I'm f***ing done. I'm done this f***ing movie. F*** you. It's not a f***ing recommend. F*** you, Hulu, for doing this shit.
It's not a recommend for me. I'm much less angry about it than he is. I just think it's a waste of time. I think it was a waste of energy. It was an interesting idea marred by lazy execution.
Yep.
That's what I got.
All right.
So,
All right. See you guys next time.